Here we go. Today, I have Matt Lenzi with me on Otissa and Company. Matt has over 20 years of experience helping organizations work through digital transformation, and execution. Matt, welcome to Otissa and Company.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Is there anything else that accomplished that you'd love for me to tell the audience?
No, I've actually, it's been 25 years plus, but it's, yeah, a long history of, I have a degree in management information systems. And then I've just kind of stayed in that realm for, the last 25 plus years and had a lot of experiences in private and public sector. And now for the past 5 years, just leveraging that to help small and medium sized businesses grow.
And Matt and I were introduced by a family friend. Actually, my brother-in-law is friends with a mutual friend of Matt's, and that is Jeremy. So shout out to Jeremy for connecting us, and I
Running
really
water
appreciate that.
coaching.
What's that?
I actually have his water bottle. So running water coaching.
Running water.
Jeremy is a good friend of mine, but we met he became my life coach and just, great investment, great human, just all around professional.
Excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a really great conversation with Jeremy, which led me to you and him introducing me to you and a few others. So really appreciate that connection and excited to see, where those different connections go. So I am going to jump right in because I always want to do a really good job of bringing value to anyone that, takes the time to look at these different videos, look at the clips. I want you to learn something. Matt has a vast amount of experience. I do, Brevard does, his company BMC does. So we are always full of information, is what I would say. And we're usually more, I would say, kind of tactile, working on, our business and helping other people to work on their businesses. So this is a departure from that. This is just leveraging, what the years of experience have brought to Matt. And let's get started. So my first question is, AI is moving fast and founders are being told they need to adopt it now. From where you sit, what is actually stopping most of them from doing it well?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, as the people that I come across of all ages, right? But especially people that are, let's just say, over the age of 40. It seems that there's sort of two camps, right? You've got that camp that's just all in, right? AI has almost become their life. And they're doing things with their businesses or for other businesses that are both generative and agentic, and they're just all in. Then on the other side of the fence, you have a lot of people who are just still in a denial phase, and you're exposed to it. They may have used it a little bit, but there's somewhat a level of fear, I would say, and also just a level of complexity that they're just, they haven't yet been willing to take on. So that's kind of one of the interesting things about where the world is right now, I think, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
I think also, the things that are stopping them, right, are, it can be very confusing and very intimidating, right? There's a lot of tools. There's literally 10,000 plus tools out there that are claiming to have ties to artificial intelligence. Some of them are completely AI driven. Some of them have, sound bites of AI built into them. And that can be intimidating. But I think the other thing that's really huge is a lot of companies just aren't prepared internally to take on AI, right? So if your
Yeah.
house is a
That's my
mess,
experience.
you're right, if your house is a mess, your data is not clean, right? And that could be sales, operational data, accounting data, right? If you don't have clean data, that's a big hurdle to get over. If your
Yeah.
processes and your documentation are not pretty nailed down, people do their job. People, let's say you have 5 salespeople, they're all should be all doing the same kind of, process workflow, right? Then you have another really big hurdle to get over, right? So, I think those are the things that are stopping people from doing it in the first place. As far as doing it well, again, it comes back to the data and the processes, and I think it's just, there's a conversion factor, right? Is you can go and play with AI and, do some use cases and try some things out, but making that jump over to the operational level, deploying it and then getting your people to buy into it, that also can be a challenge.
Yeah.
I think those
I
are
love
the things.
yeah. So I got 4 things from what you just said. Fear is one of the things, the data is another, the processes and the conversion, and I will second all 4 of those because I see them. I see them in the entrepreneurs that I get the opportunity to talk to and to help their business, and I think a lot of people are working through the fear. I have seen a shift from it just being about fear to acceptance. Acceptance that it has to be a part of the strategy. It has to be a part of what's next. And the data, I think can never have enough clean data. I think people, are scrappy when they're first starting out and lots of things kind of fall to the wayside when it comes to data. And then when it comes to a project like this or adding some type of new technology, all of those things that you kind of swept under the rug really do kind of come back. And I wouldn't say to bite you, but to actually deal with, right? Like it's no longer if you want the best outcomes that your team and company are capable of achieving, you're going to have to deal with that. I think that really does lead to the process piece because the data that you're feeding into the process, if it's not great, then the process is not going to be effective and bring about the results that you need. And the conversion piece, again, I will go back to that first part where I'm seeing a shift. Of course, we need it. They're fearful of job loss, skill loss, trust loss, right? Those things are not talked about enough with AI, but that's what I see. I see people embracing that things are changing. They need to adapt in some kind of way. They're cautiously optimistic that maybe there's something that's good that they can leverage from it. So I'm starting to see a little bit of a shift, at least in the folks that I talk to about that. So right
Yeah,
on point with you.
I think the media hype is a tough thing. It's important to pay attention. And I'm not saying that by any means, right? But sometimes, the fear factor built into it, right? The jobs that are going to disappear,
Yeah.
right? They have, hundreds of different lists of which jobs are going to be most impacted by AI, and those can cause fear. But it's, at the same time, if you're not learning now, right? You're not increasing your knowledge around AI, really are putting yourself at a deficit.
Yeah.
I have some active clients right now and I lead with AI. I mean, I've been using it. I mean, it was like, I think it was probably 2 months after ChatGPT came out. And, I had heard about this and I went in and within an hour, I mean, it raised the hair on my arms. I mean, it was chilling. Well, I immediately called my daughter down at ASU and I just was like, are you using ChatGPT? Right. I mean,
I did the same.
but I think if with people that are still in denial or just don't know where to start, it's almost like you could just sit with them, throw 3 or 4 solid use cases up there, not super simple ones either, just maybe 3 or 4 or 5 steps of how you can evaluate something, and then they get it. I think I can get somebody to get it pretty
Yeah, for
quickly.
sure, for sure. Well, what's interesting is your origin story with AI similar to mine. My college age son was like, I'm working on my business. Mom, why don't you just use ChatGPT? And he's like, just try it. So I tried it with his, and then I was like, oh, I'm getting my own account, like
Yeah.
immediately. And I went down a rabbit hole. I
Hmm.
swear that was probably 6 hours because I couldn't
Yeah.
believe what it was producing. It was a lot, but it
Yeah.
also seemed quite practical, quite aligned to what I was asking, but I hadn't taught it about my business. I didn't know all those different things almost 4 years ago. I share that story because I get the skepticism. I was right there with everyone. And when I talk about agents and how even that blew me away in using Claude Cowork, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just gave this a prompt and I'm watching it click around my computer and do all these different things and give me some like mind blowing it until you can see like some of those use cases that you're talking about and that I had. It is a lot to wrap the mind around if you're not super into tech. You're running your business, but the tech part, you're like, okay, I use what I use, my ERP, my CRM, this other stuff I just deal with, right? As far as different tools. And so when they can see that use case come to life and I could, oh, yeah, tell me what yours is. I did this for a workshop I taught at a college. It's just give me something. And literally did it like on the fly using a few tools. They were like eyes wide open because that's the power of it. Not even a real focused moment. I just had you give me something random to test for you to see. And it's so much more powerful in business.
And as you learn to do those simple things, and then you get to that next level of elaboration, and then the next level, and then, just, it sort of evolves upon itself, right? And
Yeah.
your skills around prompting are critical, right? I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but I mean, it's critical for you to understand how to elab and how to
Yeah.
improve the results that you initially received, and then take it to the next level and take it to the next level.
Yes. So we're not going to get into prompting.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
say
no.
that. Let me break that down. We won't get into that because that is more of the how. A lot of my listeners and people that are, clicking these videos are looking for the insight, and the how kind of can come and they can ping me. Happy to answer those. But I think a lot of times it's really just trying to wrap your head around a new reality. A lot of founders are layering AI on top of how they already operate. What has to be true inside of a business before AI can actually deliver on this promise? I'm thinking back to the first question
Yeah.
and, data process and conversion. But I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more on that in a practical way for people to kind of break that down.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on the data, we touched on the processes, documentation, things of that nature. But, the governance within the organization needs to evolve. That's another fear that people have. How do I prevent, certain types of information floating around on the internet, right? How do I, my intellectual property, my human resource data, my financials, how do we put governance on top of that so that you're able to rest assured that things aren't going to spin up into a negative direction.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to put all of these things together, right? And we just talked about this in 3 minutes, right? To put it on paper and do all that can happen in pretty quickly. So you can get off the ground in, the next
Yeah.
week or two if you put your mind to it, right? But I mean, weeks and months and years go by quickly. So get those things in place, get your procedures clean, and then start leveraging AI.
Yeah. Interesting. Part of my background over the last decade was working with a large enterprise SaaS company. And the things that you just talked about, they're true in every level of business. And so, firsthand knowledge with all of that from the data being what it needs to be in some areas, not in all areas, and needing to tidy that up before you could actually make moves with any new technology. I also was a part of evaluating different tech tools for organizations. So, a part of that process, vetting them, bringing them to light, as well as understanding what the requirements need. So, what I would add to that is requirements, right? I think that tool adoption is most successful when you slow down the train and really understand the problem, the business problem that you are trying to solve for. So when I think of what companies need to have in order for AI to deliver on its promise, you have to start there. I don't think you start with the tool selection, the governance. Those are great, but they're byproducts of actually solving a real business case
Yeah.
that has some teeth to it. And in my experience, and even in my business with Bravara, I start there because I'm like, listen,
Yeah, no doubt.
yes, there's all the tools, in my opinion, the tool names, let's just say, it could be very noisy, I think, for a leader of an organization. And because of that noise, some have forgotten rules of how to vet a tool and how to actually come up with the right kind of business case in order to deploy the right tool within your organization. So I
Absolutely.
start a little bit further,
It
more
starts with,
granular level to add to what you said.
yeah, no,
In my experience, that is where any tool, whether it be AI or something else, has the best shot of being successful, right? Is if you have really clearly defined that business case and the requirements that are needed in any tool that you're going to select. With those requirements come the governance piece, in my opinion. That is where you draw that in and bring that to the forefront to make sure that it meets whatever guidelines that you have set for your organization. I also tell some of my clients, when I reach them, they have tools. already. And so we do a tool assessment. Like, what do you have? Tech debt. I've been in SaaS and technology for over 20 years, so I really understand that, and it can get out of hand. I mean, even in your business, my business, it can get out of hand, the amount of tools that we, are toggling between, and so I try to help people to go, like, what do you have right now?
Yeah.
Is there something? And sometimes with the governance piece, when you have a large company that you're working with, they look at what they're doing. How have they incorporated AI into a tool that you're already using? How can we leverage that sometimes to actually augment and solve a business problem? So, just another way and some additional things as
You know,
well.
the tools assessment, right? That's something that's been part of our careers, right? For the last 20 plus years, right? Is what tools exist today and how do they interact? Why do you have three of these? Generally accomplishing the same thing with this other tool, that's somehow
Yeah.
got and but when
Well,
it
as
comes
a
to AI,
company,
it's same
as it
stuff.
grows, right? This is the
Wow.
same thing. As it grows, you don't know what the left hand is doing to the right hand. If no
Wait.
one's monitoring how many tools are coming in, and everyone believes they need a very specific tool for their function. And I say believe with air quotes because that's not always true. We kind of find out that it's different, and sometimes tools can serve several different functions. You have to weigh it out. But yeah, I understand how it happens. I've been a part of how it happens in these large
Yeah.
organizations, and it happens fast, and it's not intentional to increase the tech debt,
No,
excuse me.
yeah,
That's not
exactly.
like, it literally is people trying to be agile, trying to solve a business problem that
Mhm.
they're experiencing within their team and just getting what they need, right? I have a budget. I'm going to get what I need in order to deliver on my part of the business's promise. And so I've seen that. And that's why I try and start with that assessment because I'm like, just kicks and giggles. Let's go over what you have. Like,
Yeah.
and, figure that out. Because I do understand how it explodes, and it explodes literally if you are a high growth company, which I've been a part of several of those, it happens really fast. And before you know it, it's like, oh my goodness, how many tools are we paying for across the organization? A lot of them have adopted AI in their own right.
Mhm.
And so I really am into exploring what does that look like
Yeah.
before we add another tool on just to give you some type of functionality. And that's where the
Yeah.
business case and all that good stuff kind of comes in. Let me go to this third question. Oh, any additional comments on that? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna add real quick, the actual the requirements, right? A lot of times people don't know where to start, where they're like, "I don't even know where to start with AI," right? Well, guess what? Ask AI, right? I mean, talk about your company. That you tell AI about your company, tell them, the industry that you're in, right? And
Yeah.
then say, "What are the top 10 ways that people in my industry are utilizing AI?"
Yeah.
It's gonna explain a lot of things to you, right? So this knowledge circle that you can gain from AI, requirements gathering, or just brainstorming in general, right?
Yeah.
It's just
No,
amazing.
it's so good for that. Like, literally, I mean, with that structure, like, give me the recommendations, like, let it do some of that heavy lifting for you. Couldn't agree more. Okay, my next question is, when you look at companies where AI is working, what does the decision-making structure look like compared to companies where it's not?
Yeah, it does come back to how efficiently is your organization running today? You see organizations, spread out all over that landscape from very structured. They have structured data, they have structured processes, and everything is a certain way too. They like it a little more free form, right? They let everybody sort of do their job the way that they want to do it. Right. And that's where it becomes difficult for AI, right? Because AI is a logical thing, right? It's not a
Mhm.
Sometimes it feels like there's a person on the other end, an all-knowing person, but it's not. It's looking for patterns. And, you know, if you don't ask the questions well, right, it gets led astray.
Yeah.
But I think, it comes from the top, right? I mean, organizations that are successful, that grow quickly, most times there's relatively, sometimes there is some luck involved, but oftentimes it's a very organized leader in the first place. And they're able to set that governance infrastructure up. And that applies to AI as well. And they can see the path to take. Those are the ones where things are going well. And then again, with the ones that aren't able to deploy these things in a structured kind of way, it makes problems worse, right? If you're at this level and you're having problems with data and process and all that, implementing AI on top of it causes more chaos, causes more
Yeah.
within the organization, right? So cleaning your house before doing new things, the AI or anything else,
Yep.
right, is oftentimes the path that needs to be taken.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, in my experience, people are contending with needing a fast result or feeling like they need a fast result and actually doing some of that cleanup work, right? And so there's constant battle for what's going to actually get the right attention. We need to grow, we need to be more efficient, we need more profit, but then we have these things that we need to do in order to do that. It's hard, right? I talk to a lot of leaders, you do too, and it is not an easy decision, but it is a necessary decision in order for the success to happen with some of these tools and the efficiencies that they hope to gain. And I often share with them, listen, either do it now or in 12 months, you're still going to need to do it. So kicking that can down the road and thinking like, we'll hobble through, we'll get just a little bit of efficiency, we'll be fine, only to have to circle back and do some of that stuff. And here's the beauty that I find with at least some of the agents that I created is that it'll do some of the work for you depending on what it is. You set up the right and give it the right access, and it can do some of that work for you. It can cut the time it takes to do some of that cleanup for you. When I show people that, they're like, okay, that it's easier. But I'm like, listen, like, I'm not saying, I'm just saying it has to be done. And if you want the best outcome, it needs to be done because you'll get a much better outcome if you do it now versus you wait 12
Right.
months and kind of cobble together a few things and it starts to not produce in the way that you want and you wonder why.
Yeah, and the one thing whenever I listen to AI podcasts, this almost always comes up, right? But the concept of shadow use of AI, and let's say that your
Yeah.
organization is kind of on the fence, and are we going to do it? You're already using AI, and you don't even know it, right? Maybe you've made a statement that says you're not allowed to do this, right? Well, it's still happening, or you just say, well, dude, go and play with it, right? We'll get, you just don't have any guardrails, and
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
kind of just letting things evolve organically, and that's not a good solution either.
What's interesting is I've dealt with various types of companies, so for profit, nonprofit. And it was an interesting take, I would say, a year ago. I had one of my guests actually, he's like, you can't just say prohibition to AI. Like, that's not going to work. And I'm like, oh God, no. I'm like, they have it on their phones. So, where people and companies were making these decisions, I'm like, no, it's better for you to deal with it in transparency. It's better for you to find out what the guardrails need to be for your organization. What kind of data are you actually trying to protect? And then actually creating the right governance around what you are trying to protect. So back to the data thing, what is it that you're actually trying to protect? And making sure that that is your IP, that's the piece that gets the right amount of protection around it with these tools and access. You have to weigh that out. And lots of organizations I've worked with have found I do need to protect these things, but you're right. This thing isn't as significant. And if we can gain some efficiencies with this, then let's try it. And so some good outcomes because of that, which I always think is good. And definitely shadow AI use is a fact with our
Yeah.
mobile devices, it's at our fingertips. So if someone believes that it is going to make the task easier for them, they're going to probably use it if they're aware of it. And that's not to say everybody is aware of it, but I think for those that are, it's going to feel like, well, why wouldn't I want this to be better? Well, thank you so much, Matt, for being a guest on Otissa and Company. And to all the people that are watching, I really hope that you grab some gems from this. And thank you, Jeremy and my brother-in-law, Noah, for introducing me and Jeremy and leading me to you. Appreciate the conversation. Take care.